Today I'm going to be fixing our old pressure washer. It's a 2550 PSI Troy-Bilt, which has the Briggs Stratton 675 series engine in it. Now this hasn't run in, I want to say, a couple years, but the issue that you're going to have with some of these smaller pieces of equipment, or any piece of equipment that you don't run on a regular basis, is that they do break down just from sitting. And I'll show you as I get into this the problem areas that we've had. I already took this apart and began diagnosing it because I was hoping to fix it rather quickly and it didn't work out. So in order to protect the motor, because we have had bad weather here, we've had snow. Wow, there are ants all over this. So I covered it in a plastic trash bag to help protect it from the elements. Obviously it did not protect it from ants. For whatever reason, ants really love getting into these old machines. Look at that, they're just all over. I don't know if it's the oil that they like, or what the situation is, but we'll burn a lot of those out. I actually had them completely gum up a machine, or four-wheeler. But they're just coming out of here. So that's just with a couple days of sitting. It's had all these ants pile up on there. Just amazing. I'm going to shove this back in our hole for a second. Okay, so at this point I have taken this entire thing apart. What I'm probably going to do is take the spark plug off and put some Croil oil in there. So I've taken this entire thing apart, kind of, but and I cleaned off the this spin wheel where it creates the spark to the spark plug to give it a bit of a better connection. What I'm probably going to do is spray some of this Croil oil into the spark plug chamber just to help lube things up, because it hasn't been moving for a while, and I'll use this to lube up a lot of different parts. Now Croil oil, it's not like a grease, it's not something that will be a permanent lube, but it will help break up pieces that have rusted together and help kind of separate things and get things moving again. The other thing that I did with this is I took apart the carburetor and I tried cleaning it. This dust here, that is what came out of the float tank on our pressure washer. That is some pretty nasty stuff. Look at that. Nastiness. So I'm going to take that off and clean it out. The carburetor in this was really nasty. It had a lot of buildup in it from sitting for so long without having any fresh gas put through it. This is our Briggs Stratton Carburetor. I have used PB Blaster on it. I've used carburetor cleaner on it. The white stuff it's not cleaning out. It's on there pretty good. I've even scraped at that. I mean, that is truly white death. The biggest problem with this is the pin, the needle for the float won't move anymore. So even if I could get the rest of this clean, if that doesn't move up and down, this carburetor is not going to function properly. The other problem is that I can't clear from here to here, so that's still clogged and it's not coming unclogged. Ultimately, what I discovered was that you could get a brand new carburetor for about $10 for these Briggs Stratton engines. So I went that route. It's really not that expensive. You have to, you know, put your arms and stuff back on and kind of build this thing back together, because it doesn't come with all the attachments that would go onto the engine. So this is our old carburetor. I tried cleaning it out, so I've got the bowl off. And this is the new carburetor, which I'm going to post a link to below. Basically the exact same carburetor. They look a little different, but if you match up the screws, they're a perfect match. Now you'll notice that this carburetor has an arm on top. What I'm going to do to prep this other carburetor to go onto our machine is I'm going to remove this arm and put it on our new carburetor. I'm going to be using our Southwire screwdriver. You'll notice that I use this in a lot of our mechanical repairs, and it's an electrical screwdriver. This screwdriver is amazing. It's got so many different attachments. I love this thing. I use it all the time. When I lose my screwdriver, it drives me nuts. For this, all I'm going to do is pop out one of these. Let's see. Because I use it a lot, it's got a lot of rust and whatnot, but we're just going to slip that back into place. Trying to do this one-handed here. Let's see, those line up right there. There we go. And then we're just going to slide that back in the screwdriver. And see that fitting there, and I find this a lot when I'm working on these projects, is that these fittings for the different size screwdrivers actually end up fitting in a lot of the things that and I know fitting is not the right word, I'm not a mechanic, but they end up fitting perfectly into a lot of the projects I'm working on. So if I just have this screwdriver in my pocket, it seems like I can fix so many different things. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this arm, and then we'll attach it over to this one here. Okay, so we'll unscrew this. Welcome to our office. You don't see the inside of our house very often. And this is going to attach same way it was on this older carburetor. We've got a little nubby here. We're going to slide that right in there and align that. So that is set up and ready to go. The only thing I don't like about this carburetor is it did not come with a new gasket seal. You can see that this one had a gasket seal right here. So that could pose a problem for me. I'm gonna just hope that I can put it together. They do make a liquid gasket that you can kind of put on there into place. I don't like to use those. I like to use the preformed gaskets. Because this is a Briggs Stratton, I might be able to find that gasket at Lowe's. If we can't find it, we're going to go ahead and put it together without the gasket just to get this thing back up and running, and we'll worry about the gasket a little later. I would suggest maybe waiting until you have your new carburetor. I'll put a link to it down below before you dismantle it from your piece of equipment. Now, these Briggs Stratton motors are in a lot of different machines. They're in lawnmowers, pressure washers, so this isn't necessarily specific to a pressure washer. It is specific to the Briggs Stratton 675 series. When we get into things like the water pump on the pressure washer. That will be specific to the pressure washer. I'm hoping I don't have to go into that type of stuff. That would be a much bigger repair than I was expecting. So far I have spent a total of $10 on this repair, and I'm hoping that the things that I'm about to do will work and get this thing running for us. So I'm going to get started with my Croil oil, and if I could find a link for this, I will put it below too. This stuff is a lot better than PB Blaster if you can get your hands on it. And by putting that in there, I'm really doing my engine a lot of good things, because it hasn't been running a long time. A lot of that will burn off when I fire up the motor, but penetrating oil, it doesn't stick around like regular oil does. It evaporates much faster, and it kind of soaks into the parts that you're trying to lube. So you don't have to worry about putting it down into your spark plug chamber like that. What I like to do after I've kind of sprayed in there is just turn the motor to help it work it in and get everything lubed up. So I'm going to leave the plug out for a little bit and allow some of that Croil oil to evaporate out of there. The next thing that I want to work on is reinstalling my carburetor. So I've put everything back together on this carburetor. We have this arm here, which I'm going to have to install, and this arm connects to a lever back here behind the motor. I believe that these are in some sort of way self-choking engines, so you shouldn't have to do, you shouldn't have a choke on this. It's supposed to be a surefire kind of straight pull type thing. Of course, we know these things never are sure about firing. What I'm probably going to want to do is go ahead and get this reattached, and then I'll go ahead with these other pieces and getting them into their rightful place, which I'm not 100% sure on where everything goes at the moment. I know that this comes up here and that screws on there, and somehow this bar goes across right there. That's about all I know. So we're going to work through this, and I'll explain things as I figure them out. So one of the first things that I've had to redetermine here is which screws go back in. And if I had taken this out at the time of repair, this wouldn't be such a hassle. There's a very small ring rubber gasket already in there, which is good. I don't have to worry about my gasket. Now I'd like to figure out this piece next. I know that I should probably attach it to the bar at the other end first. So attaching this metal piece with the spring on it before you reinstall the carburetor is probably a good idea. I'll show you why here. The way that it attaches in, you have to maneuver the entire wire, and you can't do that once you've attached the carburetor. So if I come down here, I can, with the carburetor detached, I can lift it and work it back in. There. And now
I can screw that carburetor in place. Oops, got turned around. Just like this. Just like that. Okay, so let's get the carburetor screwed on. Again, I use this Southwire screwdriver for just about every thing. With these small machines, is the handiest screwdriver on earth. Okay, so the next thing I need to figure out is where this spring goes. I believe it attaches to this ring right here in the front. And finally we have this real, well, it doesn't look too long right now, but this spring right back here pulls up and attaches. There's a little hook right on the front there. A little rubber gasket right in there between the carburetor and the engine block. You make sure that that little ring is in there as you install this. The ring would be kind of about that size, and it should be on the piece sticking out from the motor. There are only 2 bolts, one on this side and one on this side, that hold this carburetor on. My bolt on the right side is actually stripped. I can move it. So I have the left side here tightened down real good. This arm, you have the spring that attaches up here, and then that's ready to do its own thing. Now this long piece, I showed you how to attach that. I would definitely attach it to the carburetor and then maneuver the carburetor to get this in place before you attach the carburetor back to the machine. It attaches to the top of the carburetor on this small little arm right here, and then you have this spring which comes out. Oops. You have this longer spring which comes out and attaches to your throttle. So that's it. This is a very simple machine. This back piece here also, I believe, just kind of bounces and moves. Somehow this arm, I believe, moves with the motor as the motor turns, and as you pull this open, it puts tension on that so it doesn't move quite as much, and in some way that increases the throttle of the motor. See, I don't know this stuff, but I like to study it as I take these things apart and kind of learn how they work, so if I run into another problem area, I can troubleshoot from understanding the different pieces. And again, most of these big Briggs Stratton engines are going to be about the same as far as how they're set up and how you put them together. The gas line, our gas tank's back here. Now this is another problem that I have run into with this, is our gas tank is actually cracked along the back side and leaking. So I'm going to take that off and fix it real quick. But the gas line will basically attach right here to the left side of the carburetor. I'm also going to go ahead and reinstall our spark plug. Once we get the gas tank fixed, I believe the spark plug was kind of our last item that needed to be repaired. So I'll check this over again though before we try and fire it up. Make sure everything is working correctly. It's pretty crazy how this entire motor kind of
seems to operate off of these springs.